even if you believe there is only a single God and it is the God that your religion tells you it is, and it's all true, there's still like a pragmatic view of it that says, okay, but how do I function in this world with that? Right? Like, how do I function knowing that there's other people that feel the exact same way about a totally different God? Do we just bash heads into each other constantly and just hope that like my God wins out, or do I figure
That's
out a way to
exactly what
talk
will
about
happen.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
there's no
exactly what
way
happens.
around it but ideological warfare. And
Mm.
so that's why I think I have respect for somebody who can balance the I don't know, but here's what I'm, you could say, the game I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could still take it very seriously and say this matters to me, but to admit that whatever thing you hold to most tightly, you would still be willing to change if there's a adequate reason to.
Let me ask you a really provocative question, and maybe I'll ask myself too as we do it. Like, if we were somehow able to find out that there was a God, and let's even assume it's a Judeo-Christian God that, I was raised Catholic, so somewhat similar.
Okay.
Um, and they said like, yeah, like this is right. Like I need you to believe everything I'm saying and not question any of it ever, and just kind of, and they actually had that doctrine which said you just blindly worship everything I say and do. Like, would you go with it? Would you say, okay, like that's just what it is? Or would you say, like, no, I'm still comfortable questioning it. Like, I'm still comfortable saying, I think the better approach for me is to question that.
I think to me it's an absurd hypothetical because a God who needs approval is not a God.
God.
And so that's, it's like, what, that's just the tyrant monarch at that point. So it's like, did that, is that what created the universe? It's like it has to somewhat, and this is another one of those base level assumptions, is that if there's a God, it seems like it has to somehow correlate with our sense of good, or else it's not. And I don't know why that seems like so automatic, and so it must be the case. But it's like, if it's power hungry, it's just not God. Like,
Can't be.
right?
Can't be God.
And
Yeah, it
I hate
feels,
that
I
I
don't know that
can't
I can
put better
explain
words
why,
on
but
that.
yeah. Why is that? Let's try and, why would that be? If it's power hungry, it's not a God because it's not all powerful then? If it needs to crave
Correct.
power.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of like pinning any kind of emotions really on God, like, yeah, if the God can be surprised by anything that happens, I mean, I understand the whole theology of like God willfully subjects himself to, grief in order to have this relationship with us and stuff, but that still implies some kind of need, and need uh precludes omnipotence, it would seem like. So um sure, like for illustrative purposes it can have value, but that's that's just a big man. That's
Mm,
not, it's not
mm,
God.
mm, mm. Yeah, and I guess that's one of those like hard truths for people to accept, especially if you've grown up your whole life with a belief in God and with religion. That idea of like the cognitive dissonance, bring it back to this idea that I'm going to completely submit and surrender to this thing that needs me to submit and surrender to it, and like reconciling that to be like, but why would they need that? I think, I guess the argument somebody would say back is because it's the right way to live. Like, I'm submitting to the right way to live. If I'm going to submit to anything, that would be the thing I would submit to. The reason God has the right to demand that I submit to it or surrender to it is because it actually is the goodness or the right or the whatever.
Yeah.
What's the response to that?
Well, I mean, that's fair enough if you take out the threat of hell.
Take
If
out.
if it really is about, hey, I'm gonna work through you and help you be the best kind of person you can be for purposes that I'll still keep to myself, but this is what I've called you to, accept it and do it, and good things will happen. Awesome. But if you're saying because you didn't, you're gonna burn in a lake of fire, whole different story.
All right, let me play devil's advocate, no pun intended. If the belief is though that if you don't surrender to it, if you don't live the life that you're supposed to live, it causes suffering for other people. Therefore, the threat of hell, it's almost like the threat of hell is meant to address the exact thing you and I are celebrating. Like, you are human. You're going to question. You're going to doubt. That could lead you to not do what I'm telling you to do. So I'm going to just do the most straight line thing here and tell you, do this or you're going to be fucked. Like, it's going to
Yeah.
be terrible. Maybe that's the most efficient way to do it.
So then I think then the problem just becomes, how do you deal with the fact that the message, it was not clearly enough spread that you could hold everyone accountable to that?
Mm-hmm.
Or is not, like, it's all in human words that could very easily be explained by the fact that humans create religion. So
but it is a dilemma then for like, I've thought of this before. Let's say that same hypothetical. Let's say God came down right now and popped up on our Zoom call right now, right? God, and he's like, hey guys, she, it is like, hey guys, like, it's true. Everything in the Bible is true, and they could prove it to us to where we knew it. Like, what's our next step? Like, because then we kind of put ourselves in the position of the religious, powers that be. That's like, I have this information. I know it's the right information. How do I get people to buy into it? Like, what would you do? How would you run that process?
So it's only been revealed to us. So the burden is now on us to.
Yes.
Ooh. So whenever I'm talking to anybody who's very convinced of their faith, I always ask them, is it because it makes a certain kind of sense to you, or because you had an experience? Right. So I'd find
Good
myself
question.
suddenly shifting to the, I had this experience, but sorry, I can't prove it. And then realizing that experience actually has no value whatsoever. So something would have to transpire in that revelation beyond just telling us it's true, that gives us a why. Like a
why.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I realized, like, when I was really passionate about I better evangelize and spread the gospel, was I don't have a clear explanation of why this, like, believing in this thing correlates with something better in your life, either for you or through you. Most people have at least a sense of morality that's at least somewhat comparable to the Bible already. So I had no better marketing pitch than do this to not go to hell. So that would be my question to God: is what is this still essentially the message of you can be freed from guilt for your sins and go to heaven? Or like, what?
Let's assume, because there's certain people who would say, if God is all powerful and all knowing, let's assume they are, and says this is the way to live, it should end right there. You shouldn't question, you just accept it. I think it sounds like you and I are probably the people that would be like, well, we don't fall into that camp. And we could debate if that's right or wrong. But okay, so let's say we ask the question of like, God, I get it. I'm game. Just tell me why. Because if you need me to go out there and spread the word here, I need to be able, even just for like efficiency's sake, I need to be able to do that. Let's say they gave the answer that was like, that is the path to reducing unnecessary human suffering. Like, the world will suffer far less, humans will suffer far less if everybody follows this path. Forget about hell. Let's even say God admits, like, humans made that up. They just thought that was the easiest way to convince people. But that's the end. That's why.
So we now need them to believe in the person of Jesus Christ in order for this mission to be accomplished.
Yeah, let's say that's the How do you do it?
Like, just on a message spreading level, how do I?
Yeah, like, what's your first thought,
this?
even though, because, and I say it not to expect that you'll have the answer to be like, oh, this is exactly what I do, right? But more to like, it allows us to empathize with that sensation of like, it really is a dilemma.
Yeah.
Like, even you could imagine, if you want to give the benefit of the doubt, well-intentioned people saying, I want to spread this word. I feel like I have to spread this word because not for me, but for the sake of humanity. But I have this challenge of like, as soon as I start spreading it, people are going to be like, you're fucking crazy. And like, why should I listen to you? Like, it really is a challenge.